Alito, you tuned in, you know, it's a Chaco, Biakak, you know what I mean? You tuned in to the show, I'm about to deal with right now, this book that I came across. Um, I'm always looking for different things, man, and this is the first thing I just thought it was just something of amazement. For one, because of the price of it. Um, it's on Amazon. It's a book you can look up. It's called 103 Amazing Facts About the Black Indian of the Western Hemisphere, outlined by Kenyon, a non-reservationist. And it just amazed me because the book is going for $250,000. Not $250, but $250,000. And it's a leather bound book. And yeah, so I'm gonna read a little bit because he does give some inserts to the book. Thing that amazed me about it though is, many of the things that he deals with in the book are things that, you know, people that I know, and have spoken to have, already, as they say, lace me with. So shout out, to my sister, you know, my Choctaw sister, Bernie. Um, Shout out to Tony Tomahawk. Shout out to my sister who dealing with a lot of good things. Also, Phoenix Moon, um, uh, Dark Man X. He deal with some good things. Um, Shout out to the autogenous one. He be dealing with some good stuff. For me, it's just like even for the title of the book, for in some ways, it's to attract many of our brown brothers and sisters out there, who are being so-called black. I mean, look at me. Do I look black to you? Come on, seriously. I'm brown just like this hat. My hat is brown. You dig what I'm saying? The hat is brown. You know what I mean? And that's a darker brown than what I am. But still, no doubt about it, my skin is of a brown hue. You cannot say that I'm black. You know, so for me, that's a turn off when I deal with certain people that's always trying to turn us into black. Us the people into what color that we're not, and then also because it just sends a red flag to me, like, hey, what is this person, what is this, he may be a person because that's like a corporation, but what is this people up to? What are they trying to get me involved in? Because they keep trying to refer to me as black, you know so we got to be careful with that, and really shy away from it. Get away from it. Don't shy away from it. If somebody call you black, you know what I mean, correct them real quick. You know, it's not something that we tolerate. It's not cool. Um, in the book though, because to give you inserts of it, he breaks down how he's not really calling you black. You know, the man who wrote this book, because he's telling you that you're so called it, but to get your attention is he put the black Indian, because many times you're referring to yourself as black, and he's trying to convey to you the deprogramming of you calling yourself black. you know we're not black. My brothers and sisters out there, who are indigenous to this land, we are not black. I'm not gonna call myself a black Choctaw. I'm not gonna call myself a black Indian. I'm not gonna call myself you know what I mean, even in the terms of Negro, because you're still saying black. No, I'm brown skinned. I am brown. If you want to deal with a color, I am brown. But I'm just indigenous. I'm an indigenous American. You know what I mean? My ancestry goes back, generations being on this land. So I'm not gonna call myself a color that don't represent me. You know what I mean? In that wise. So it's not to step on nobody's toes. I'm just, into what's uh truth. And one thing about truth, it will break down and crumble down a whole mountain of lies, just one truth. And shout out to my brother, you know, that deals with truth. You dealing with truth, man. That's a brother who I can help, man, especially when you're dealing with my people and us, as a whole. I can't help but love you because dealing with the truth of us, about us as far as our heritage, So the one of the excerpts of the book, that he's, given to you is it says, just check it out. You know what I mean? I'm gonna give you the work. You gonna get this work. You dig? Um, it says at times, statements or phrases can cause the human mind to tap into worlds or realities where a bigger picture or image of that time zone or reality is given, revealing more information about that reality. Someone else has been responsible for recording the history of my people for the past 500 years, other than my own people. The perception of our past is very limited. Our past and how we perceive our past has been shown to us by a people who have so far not recorded our history correctly for the past 500 years. May these facts penetrate the psyche of my people and cause a mental stimulus that ignites the spirit and breaks the spell of amnesia that currently plagues most of us. We are in desperate need of total memory recall. Canyon. And then it gives preferred readings. And the introduction, it reads, this work has been written in a special way to psychologically and spiritually heal the mental and spiritual damages that have been done to the black indigenous native of the Western Hemisphere, so called American Indian. It is also designed to make the black indigenous native of the Western Hemisphere aware of the psychological and spiritual damages that have been done. It is not for everyone. It is an antidote for a degree of sickness that has been embedded deeply within the well being of my people. My people have been programmed to think that Africa is their homeland when home is right under their feet. Mhm. This work has repetitive tones in it for a reason. It is designed to deprogram the systematic programming of the black indigenous native of the Western Hemisphere throughout the Americas on how they have been mentally trained since birth to view themselves and how they have been mentally trained since birth to view and perceive their own ancestors. My name is Canyon. I was born and raised on the west side of Chicago. My father's side of the family comes from the Kawata and Kasuta, Shawnee, and Tuscarora people. My mother's side of the family comes from the Tasaligi, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Chachula people. based upon the matriarchal society that was once honored by most of my people and still honored by some of us. I am Tasaligi. I come from a long line of women who trace their lineage through women. Whatever the woman's clan is, so is the child. However, the strongest spirit on me and strongest ancestral spirits who walk with me is from my father's side. I am a red stick warrior. We oppose European expansion onto our ancestral lands. We opposed our own people who supported this and opposed our own people who supported the rebel government called America. We fought against Europeans, the new rebel government, America, and our own people. We bathed in hot blood with our own kinsmen who were wooed and seduced by European lifestyle and European trinkets. Many battles were fought with the white man. Many more were fought with our own people who became victims of the white man's spell. Throughout different battles where there were 1,000 or more, see, he keeps saying white, but so-called white people on the battlefield, there were triple the number of us in ranks alongside of them, helping them with their European uh, colonialism campaign. As a child growing up during the 1970s at the age of 5, my grandparents took me back to where they were born and raised, which is Mentor City in Money, Mississippi in LaFleur County. They took me to various burial grounds and showed me where my ancestors were resting. In my family, no known relatives still speak our native tongue. It comes. So it's more, to it. However, and what I was saying about the white people thing is, I'm not going to allow you to call me, black, but I'm not going to call you white. I deal with different terms. Are you European? What are you? You know what I mean? Where you from? Okay, and that's just me. Or I call you Anglo-Saxon or something like that. So the next page is a salute to the royal matriarchy. So he gives the names, and gives out his salutes, and I salute also. Um, Now he's getting into the book right here, and he's giving us 1 through 9. So 1 reads, um, these are the facts, the 103 facts. So 1 through 9. Black Indians have lived in the Western Hemisphere since time immemorial. 2. Black Indians were not spawned or created as a result of Africans coming to the Western Hemisphere during the transatlantic slave trade, mixing in with native people of the Western Hemisphere region, also known as Native American Indians. That was 2. 3. Native or indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, also known as Indians, did not refer to themselves or their ancestors as Indian. We use the word Indian since most people are accustomed to this title. The word Indian, red man, and Native American are European colonized terms. Native or indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere refer to themselves by way of tones, vibrations, expression. Your spirit said who and what you were. The name given to you was based upon what type of spirit you possess. 4. All native or indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, aka Indians, possess different physiological features. Hair texture, bone structure, and skin tone vary. 5. All native or indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, aka Indians, did not and do not have high cheekbones, slanted eyes, reddish copper skin, or straight black hair. 6. All native or indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere did not live in teepees and pueblos. 7. It is difficult for society to accept the black Indian as being native or indigenous to the Western Hemisphere region because society has been brainwashed with fabricated fake images of indigenous people in the Western Hemisphere, aka Indians. 8. Most reservation Indians were carefully selected by the U.S. government to occupy reservations when reservations were being established. 9. The U.S. government, for the most part, selected pale skinned Indians or Hollywood version Indians to occupy U.S. government established reservations. Okay, now this is 27 through 31. Most so called black Americans or so called African Americans, when asked if any Native Americans are in their family, at least 95% respond with the answer yes. In addition to this, most so called black Americans or so called African Americans are also able to give you the name of the tribe that their relative comes from. Thus, the so called black American or African American oddly insist upon calling themselves black American or African American instead of referring to themselves by way of ancestral tribal name that has survived in their family, which in essence is their true nationality. 28. Most so called black Americans or so called African Americans find it difficult to accept themselves as being native or indigenous to the Western Hemisphere because of programmed, fabricated images of native people in the Western Hemisphere. Fake images of their own indigenous ancestors have been routinely drilled into their psyche since birth. The black Indian image does not register within their psyche because of the fake imagery programming that the U.S. government has instilled into their minds of how native or indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere look. The spirit of so called black Americans or so called African Americans tells them one thing, while the programmed of their um, fake image of their own ancestors says another. This all leads to inner conflict. 29. The U.S. school system and the media have been the two biggest giants behind programming into the masses fake fabricated images of native or indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, aka Indians. 30. Native or indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, aka Indians, built pyramids and pyramid mounds, just like the ancient Egyptians. This synonymous comparison of both cultures from opposite sides of the world is because they both were genetically linked. They both are the same people. But the one that you hear about mostly is, you hear about the Egyptians more than the mound builders and those who built great pyramids over here in the Western Hemisphere. We call it Turtle Island. 30. Native or indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, aka Indians, built pyramids, pyramid mounds, just like the ancient Egyptians. This synonymous comparison of both cultures from opposite sides of the world is because they were both genetically linked. They both are the same people. 31. During the time of Pangea, a Greek word that means all one, all of the continents of the planet Earth were one mass of land. people lived and thrived during the time of Pangea. This is a large explanation as to why pyramid builders in the Eastern Hemisphere and pyramid builders in the Western Hemisphere have cultures that are incredibly synonymous. The continents continue to move. Some move 4 inches a year. The continents will one day become one mass. And this will be the last page that he gives the excerpt to. And this is 51 through 57. And it says, most Buffalo soldiers were black Indians dispatched by the U.S. Army to assist in colonizing and confiscating of black Indian lands west of the Mississippi. Reservation natives who don't know the true identity and who are also brainwashed by images feel that the Buffalo soldiers, who are ill mistaken and ill classified as African Americans, helped the pale face drive them off their lands and onto reservations. This last aspect of things, however, is true. In addition to this, one must keep in mind that most reservation natives are hybrid descendants of the true indigenous seed. 52. Many black Indians who fought in the American Civil War, either on the Confederate side or the Union side, were not acknowledged as being indigenous or native. They were acknowledged as being Negroes. 53. Most of the Navajo code talkers who were used to assist the U.S. government in World War II were blue-black Indians. The photo and film footage of the black Navajo who participated in this war were carved out of history. 54. The term Negro and colored was not only applied to black Indians to psychologically and spiritually remove them from their lands, these colonized titles were also applied to black Indians who were incorporated into the slave market. Black Indians who were incorporated into the slave market because they took you from being the people into being a person. So it incorporated you. We are a people. Individually, you by yourself is a people, not a person. When they classify you as a person, then you are incorporated. 55. Black Indians did slave raids on each other before and after European arrival. 56. Black Indians owned other black Indians as slaves. These slaves were also classified as Negroes. 57. European writers took advantage of number 56, fact above, to say that Indians owned slaves. Fake European images of so-called Indians were promoted, showing so-called Indians owning slaves. Art paintings were displayed showing distorted images of natives in the Western Hemisphere owning dark-skinned people as slaves, who in most cases were also native. The fake images of indigenous people in the Western Hemisphere, which usually displays them as having pale skin, shows them owning slaves whose skin is always depicted as being dark. Pale-skinned Europeans help to create a consciousness which subliminally says that slaves and Negroes are synonymous. When most people hear or read about a slave, simultaneously, the image of a dark-skinned person appears in their mind. By showing fake pale-skinned natives owning black or owning dark-skinned people, so-called black, but dark-skinned people, help to create the illusion that so-called Indians and Negroes are two separate races, when in essence, they're the same people. So that was the last excerpt from the book. The name of the book, once again, is 103 Amazing Facts About um, the Black Indian of the Western Hemisphere. It's outlined by um, Canyon, a non reservationist. And let me show you this price tag on this thing, because it's hidden, and this is not me or my doing, but that's the price tag on there. $250,000. Dollars, as they say. It's leather bound. Some good leather. But the information in there that he's dealing with, for someone who hasn't, you know, looked up any of that information and just been going around calling themselves African American or black, it is some valuable information. So um, it might be you know, something you can work out with the brother. You know what I mean? To get it. Um, yeah, a lot of these things, you got to understand. Um, it's been broken down throughout the years, for me. So I see where the brother coming from, and the angles, and a lot of it has been, shown to me. I've seen eyewitness accounts of it. You got people who going by, oh, what I've seen on TV is that's how an Indian is supposed to look, or someone who's original to this land, not realizing that they're using people from different nationalities. They might have somebody who's Italian, from Europe, playing someone who is so-called Indian, and you think that's what the phenotype, or that's the image of how it's supposed to look. When you look up and when you're looking in the mirror every day, and you're the actual aboriginal or the indigenous one, and or so-called Indian, and you're you're calling yourself something else. You're calling yourself African American, or you calling yourself a black man or a black woman. When at the end of the day, you have to look at what does that bring you into by calling yourself black in a social construct, in a legal construct. What does being called black do for you? That was a question that my sister asked me some years ago, and I had to look it up. But I can tell you what I found out, it doesn't do anything good for you. It takes from you. It makes you to be nothing because you're identifying yourself as that. You're saying that you are black, you are void, you are nothing. But if you have an ear to hear, I'm talking to you. In this, I'm not giving no legal advice.